Right. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. We are in Sanhedrin. We are about to turn over the page, I think, today, which is a big occasion. We will move over from Yud Zayin Amud Aleph to Yud Zayin Amud Bet. So that's an occasion. We're right at the bottom of page 17a. And I'll share the screen with you. There we go. That should be on your screen now. It's page 92 if you're in the Steinsaltz version. We are talking about, if you remember, we were talking about the requirements of a judge in the Sanhedrin, and we said last time over here, Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, that he had to be tall, he had to be wise, he had to be good looking, he had to be mature, he had to know all sorts of monkey business or recognize witches and witchcraft, and he had to know 70 languages. That was Rabbi Yochanan's view. We're going to come back to the 70 languages a little bit later. But at this point, we have another opinion. And this opinion actually refers back to something we learnt a few weeks ago. Let me take you back up the page a little bit. And do you remember we spent a long time, we spent a long time on this section here. That Rav Kahana said a Sanhedrin which unanimously wanted to convict, the guy walked free. And I think we spent about 3 weeks just on that little section there, because it was so counterintuitive that a guy is so guilty that every single one of the 71 judges found against him, and yet he then walks free. And we went through that in great detail, and we had various different opinions, and we went through the article by Rabbi Ephraim Glatt in some detail, which was very interesting indeed. But one of the things that we put forward in that scenario was that a Sanhedrin which cannot find one person that cannot find something good to say about this guy, some mitigating factors, something that might raise the question of his innocence, that is not a proper Sanhedrin. Because we said that in order to be on a Sanhedrin, you had to be so clever that you could prove the impossible. Do you remember that? And therefore, if there wasn't somebody, at least one person in that 71, who would turn around and say, well, hang on it, have you considered this scenario with this fellow, and thinking out the box and trying to prove the impossible? Nobody has done that. Then we have to say, hang on a minute, this Sanhedrin's not a proper Sanhedrin. It's difficult. This whole unanimous verdict thing is difficult. But it's the idea that there needs to be at least this one person who applies his halachic mind to try and acquit this person, is now gone into in a little bit more detail by Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, which is where we're up to. Right at the bottom of the 17a, if you're in a big boys Gemarah. If you're in the Steinsaltz, it's over here on page 92. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Ein Moshivim b'Sanhedrin, you can only sit on the Sanhedrin, Ela mi sheyodea letaher et hasheretz min haTorah. Somebody who is able to say that a sheretz is pure from the Torah. What are we talking about here? What's a sheretz?
Creepy crawly. I used to learn it as creepy crawly.
A creepy crawly, yeah, that's what I was taught as well. I think we probably had the same teachers, Johnny.
We did.
We did, yeah, a creepy crawly. And in fact, In fact, it's not a good translation at all. Our teachers did not do us any favors by translating a sheretz as a creepy crawly, because what we now think of a creepy crawly is what we might find in our lettuce, right? Would you agree with that, Johnny? That what
yes.
you find in your lettuce when you're checking it is a creepy crawly.
Yeah.
Now, is that a sheretz? The answer obviously is no, otherwise I wouldn't be asking the question. But we call it shropsim, don't we? We say, oh, you've got to wash your lettuce and your vegetables because there might be shropsim in there. There might be creepy crawlies in there. Well, that is not what a Torah sheretz is. Where does the Torah tell us about this idea of the sheretz? The thing that creeps along the ground, not a creepy crawly as we would call it in a vegetable leaf, but something else. Yes, Jeffrey?
Is it the serpent?
Well, the serpent actually is not a sheretz. And in fact, Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav here is going to be proved wrong. Or he's going to, no, he's not going to be proved wrong. He's going to use the snake to prove something which is unprovable. So hold that thought about the snake. It's not the snake.
Ah, but a serpent wasn't a snake.
Or a serpent. It's not a serpent either. Okay, there is a place in the Torah where the Torah tells us about things which pass on ritual impurity. What is the main thing that passes on ritual impurity? Tum'ah.
Dead bodies.
Dead bodies. Correct. Dead bodies. Now, dead bodies of humans are the most impure thing that there is. The thing that passes on this what we call the Aviavot Tumot, the grandfather of Tumah, the top level Tumah. There are other things which the Torah tells us, the dead bodies of which pass on tum'ah, not so much as the human one. If you are tamei, if you are impure by touching a human dead body, how long are you impure for?
7 days.
Very good. And how do you get unimpure? How do you get pure again?
You're sprinkled with water.
You are sprinkled. What else are you sprinkled with apart from water?
Ashes.
What did you say, Jeffrey?
Ashes.
Ashes of what?
Red heifer.
The red heifer. Correct. The para aduma. Okay, that is that whole business there about what you have to do if you're tameh. You have to go and be separate for 7 days, and then you have to go to the mikveh, and then you have to be sprinkled with the ashes of the red heifer and all that business. Now, what about other things that can cause tum'ah? What else can cause this ritual impurity? Well, it's the dead bodies of something that we're talking about now, the dead bodies of shratzim. Now, are you ritually impure if you touch a dead fly on your lettuce?
Oh.
No, you're not. So that cannot be a sheretz. So when we say that this lettuce is full of shrotzim, we don't mean the sheretz that the Torah is talking about. There are 8 specific animals that the Torah delineates as being capable of passing on tumah. Now there is a significant disagreement amongst the rabbis as to what these 8 Hebrew terms mean. I'm going to show you them on the screen now. It comes from Parshat Shmini. Can you see the screen now? Have you got Parshat Shmini on there now? Have you still got the Gemarah? You have got Parshat Shmini. Okay, yep. That's good. All right, let's do it in the Hebrew first. Let's do the Hebrew. Okay. Verse 29. V'zeh lachem hatamei b'sheretz hashoretz al haaretz. These are the ones that are for you unclean amongst the sheretz, hashoretz. The sheretz is a noun, the creeping thing. Hashoretz, that's a verb that creeps on the ground. And the translation here, they have given translations, not unanimously agreed amongst the rabbis that this is the correct translation of them, but we have hacholed, the weasel, ha'achbar, the mouse, hatzav, the toad, leminehu and its species, ha'anaka, the hedgehog, v'hakoach, the chameleon, v'halta'ah, the lizard, v'hachomet, the snail, v'hantinshamet, and the mole. Okay, so those 8 things. Next pasuk, Eile hatameim lachem b'chol hasharetz, hanogea behem b'motam yitma ad ha'erev. Somebody who touches them when they're dead is tamei for how long? Not 7 days like the human body. 1 day until the evening. Ad ha'arev. Okay? And then there's all things about then if that touches a dead one of those touches something else, it passes on the truma to that, and that's what this is talking about in Parashat Shmini. So there are 8 animals that are called shrotzim, not creepy crawlies as you and me were taught, you and I were taught, Johnny. They are these specific animals, whether they are the weasel, mouse, toad, hedgehog, chameleon, lizard, snail, and mole. Could be 8. Some of them not quite that. There'll be other opinions, but they're that sort of family of animals. Okay. Now, there is a clear halacha in the Torah there in Parashat Shmini that says if you touch those, you are unclean. And the next pasuk says that if they touch anything else, and let's have a look at it, verse 32. V'chol asher yipol alav mehem b'motam yitma mikol kli eitz or beged or 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 sak or kol kli asher yaseh melacha behem. If any of these dead things, so if a dead mouse is found in your wooden vessel, you open up your cupboard on a morning to get out your kneading bowl made out of wood to make your challah, and in it is a dead mouse. That wooden bowl is tamei. Same is in a garment, whether it's made out of leather or it's made out of sack or any vessel which work is done. You need to toivel it. You need to take it to the mikvah. Yeah? Here, what do you have to do with it? B'mayim yuva. You have to bring it into the water. V'tamei ad ha'arev. Then it's unclean until the evening. V'taher, and then it will become clean again. If it happens to be an earthenware vessel, we don't use earthenware so much anymore today. Most of our earthenware things that we have are glazed, so they're not proper earthenware. But if you have something which is called kli cheres, a earthenware vessel, that cannot be toiveled. You find a dead mouse in an unglazed earthenware pot, you've had it. It's got to be broken. It's finished. You can't toivel it. You can't kasher it. Same similarly, by the way, with kashrut. If you talk about basar v'chalav, if you muck up a metal vessel, a pan or something, you put your milk in your meat pan or the other way around, there is a way to kasher that pan usually. But if it's an earthenware vessel and you've mucked it up, you've had it. You can't kasher it. The question is, what about glazed stuff? What about china? All sorts of different machlokas. This is not a halacha shir, so we're not going into there. We'll never get anywhere if we do that, but it's interesting to know. So these 8 things can cause havoc. You touch them, you're tamei. You get them into your vessels, they are tamei. They are impure. So how could it possibly be? Let's go back to the Gemarah. You should have the Gemarah back on the screen now. Yes? Okay. How could it possibly be that Rav Yehuda, in the name of Rav, can say a judge in the Sanhedrin has to be able to say that these shrotzim min Torah are pure and do not cause tumah? In other words, you're asking this judge to prove the impossible. Now, that's not to say that this judge will say that that is the halacha, because it isn't, because the halacha is, as it says in the Torah. What Rav Yehuda Amar Rav is saying is that these judges have to be clever enough to come up with an argument that could be such that these things would be pure. In other words, they have to think laterally and think out of the box, even though that's not the halacha. Yes, Julia, you're muted at the moment, so unmute.
Well, one of them was bothering me anyway, because I have a lot of them. And it seems to me that there could be a very good argument that a snail, it could be rendered untama, because it lives inside its shell. It's very different from the other ones. The snail animal is inside the shell, isn't it? And in fact, when I'm looking at the Steinsaltz, he doesn't mention either the word that that we saw before for snail.
Okay, well, I'm just going to look up on Google what the various options are for this word chomet. Okay, let's have a look. What is a chomet?
Johnny, doesn't the techeret come from a trunculus snail?
Murulus trunculus. Well done, Johnny.
No, you said it the other night on the share. But it comes from a snail.
Yeah, it's a different type of snail. That's called a chilazon.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to know what this chomet is. Okay, now let's have a look and see. Wikipedia helps us out here. The genus can you see it? Can you see my screen here with
yes.
Wikipedia? Okay, so the genus I don't know how you say this, Eumechis, I don't know, whatever it is, comprises of 4 African to Middle Eastern skink species. Okay, so there is an opinion that there's a picture of it. Can you see that picture?
Yes.
Okay, well, that ain't a snail, is it? That ain't a snail. That's definitely not a snail. That is
I think I've had them in the garden, actually. Horrible things.
Well, if it's dead, don't touch it, because you'll become Tommy. That is called a Schneider's skink. Novo Ulysses Schneideri. Okay, wonderful. All right. So that is one opinion about what a chomet is. Let's have a look at here. There's some other pictures here on the screen there. There's another Ulysses. None of them look like snails to me.
Rab Steinsel says at the bottom of the page what some of the one. That one comment does say skink, as you said.
Does it really? That's interesting. So we have
the bottom of the page.
In the Chabad translation of the snail, that doesn't appear to be a great translation. Rav Steinsaltz says what? Let's have a look at Steinsaltz. Let's go back to that. Here we go. Where does it say that?
The bottom of the page.
There we go.
Bottom of the page.
Let's have a look at that. Creeping animals. There are only 8 creeping animals, small mammals and lizards, whose carcasses impart ritual impurity. And there he quotes the pasuk that we just read out. There is no clear oral tradition with regard to the identity of the animals listed in the Torah. Therefore, determining their identity involves educated conjecture. Among the suggestions offered are chomet is a skink, according to that. Very interesting. And he says tinshemet is a chameleon. And the Chabad translation said that a koach was a chameleon. So, and it seems that there is definitely not very agreement. I'm looking at the art scroll, and the art scroll. What does the art scroll tell us? I'm wondering if the art scroll tells us anything about them. No, it doesn't say. Doesn't give us any translations. Probably wise not to give us any translations. What I want to do is, and Bli Neder, I will do this before next week. I will speak to somebody who knows about these things.
Natan
Slifkin, correct. Avril's on her way now to Natan's area, to Bet Shemesh, and there we go. There's Avril's camera on the road. Natan Slifkin, Rabbi Natan Slifkin, is known as the zoo rabbi because he helped set up the biblical zoo in Yerushalayim, and he now has a most wonderful museum in Bet Shemesh, or just outside of Bet Shemesh, called the Museum of Biblical Natural History, or various combinations of those words. And it is wonderful. It goes into great detail about all the animals that are mentioned in the Torah. It has various examples of them there. If you haven't been to the natural history of biblical, whatever it's called, you must go. If you have grandchildren who are aged between 3 and I don't know, 3 and 30, then you must take them there, because it is wonderful. We have been a couple of times with in our shul on our Tiyulim. Went to once the old museum where it was previously, and now he's got a brand new beautiful building, and we've been a second time. Wonderful experience for all ages, very entertaining, very educational, and extremely worthwhile. Now, Natan, who I've known since he was a little boy back in Manchester. In fact, my wife was his babysitter, and he is a font of knowledge about biblical animals. Obviously, he has written a book which I have downstairs. If I'd have thought about it before the shir, I'd have brought it up, and we could have looked it up now. But I don't want to disturb you by running downstairs. We'll have a look at that together next week and see what he has to say about these different 8 animals. But right now, Julia, I agree with you. I think we will ditch the Chabad translation of snail, and we will adopt the chomet as this little fella here, the skink.
The one I have a problem with is the translation of lizard, because these are all lizards.
Yes, lizard, I suppose, is for us. A lizard is a generic term, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't know if that word that they're translating as lizard is supposed to be generic, or they mean a specific one.
Let's have a look. Which one? The translation of the Chabad for lizard is halata'ah. And what does Steinsaltz say for the lizard? Let's have a look.
Lizard.
He says dab.
No, leta is lizard.
Leta.
I beg your pardon. Well, oh yes, sorry. Tzav, he says, is a dab lizard, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Leta is a lizard. Let's have a look and see whether Wikipedia can help us what a leta is. Let's go back to ask the question. What is a I've done that in Hebrew letters. Let's go back out of there. What is a leta? How do you spell it? Lamed tet what? Lamed tet aleph hey. Lamed tet aleph hey. What is a leta? Okay. Letaot. Lo, that's interesting. It's in the plural there and the plural there. Let's have a look.
But they don't underneath it's singular. No.
Images. There we go. Images. Let's go to the images first of all for a leta'a. Well, I think we would all agree those look like lizards, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they look like. Now, if you look over here, leta'a zriza, it looks to me, Art, that you are right, that the word leta'a is a generic word for a lizard. I don't think it can be an accurate translation for the generic one, because within the 8 we have other types of lizards, don't we? Have a chameleon is a type of lizard, isn't it?
According to that translation.
Yeah, and a tsav, which they, according to that translation, is a dab lizard, is also a lizard. Although
you gotta have a chameleon as a picture here.
Yeah, and then of course we've got the tsav here on the Chabad one. The tsav is a toad according to this. So I think all we can really say is we don't really know.
I thought a tsav was a tortoise or a turtle.
Yeah, I think that
modern Hebrew. Yeah,
in modern Hebrew that is correct, but we can't go for modern Hebrew because we're getting to the problem of Natan's issues with hares and hyraxes. Okay, for another day. So I think the man to ask about this is definitely Rabbi Natan Slifkin. And B'li I'll have a look in his book, and if I'm not happy with what I can find in his book, I'll call him up, and maybe we can invite him to the shiur next week to give us a little talk about what these 8 shrotzim are. How that would be cool, wouldn't it? Let me see if I can arrange that. Yes, David wants to tell us something.
No, just to conclude with basically what we've set up to now, that if you look in both the Art Scroll and in the New Koren, they both make the point that all of these species are debated by the Rishonim. We don't. At the end of the day, we're no clearer.
We're no clearer. We can make. I think that what Rav Steinsaltz says is a nice expression. What does he say? He says it involves educated conjecture. Yeah. Okay, so we don't really know what they are, but it's interesting.
The identities of these animals are debated. Lata'a, according to Rashi, is a lizard, for example.
Yeah. So I'll have a look in Natan's book and see if he says anything, and then I'll have a word with him. And if he's got something interesting to tell us, then maybe I'll invite him to join the shiur next week. In the meantime, let's go back to the Gemara. And what was all this about? This was all about Rav Yehuda, in the name of Rav, saying, I can. He says, Amar Rav. Rav says, Ani adun va'ataharenu. I will judge, literally adun from the word din. I will judge, and I will show you how I could make these animals, which the Torah says are impure, I will make them pure. In other words, Rav is demonstrating the kind of intellectual ability, the kind of mind that is required for somebody who's going to sit on the Sanhedrin in order that he would then be able to find something good to say about the biggest rotter out, who all the other 70 judges on the Sanhedrin can't find a good thing to say about. So how is Rav going to prove that these 8 things should not be impure, but they should be pure? So now we turn over the page to 17b, and this is where Jeffrey's serpent comes in. And he says like this, this is what Rav says. He brings an a fortiori argument. What's that? What's an a fortiori argument? What's it called in Hebrew?
Doesn't it mean it's apparent? It's obvious.
Of a comma?
A kal v'chomer art. Yes, very good. A kal v'chomer. Where have you read that this morning, Johnny? Where have you read those two words this morning?
It's been Rabbi Shmuel, no?
Absolutely is in Rabbi Yishmael.
Yeah.
Rabbi Yishmael Omer b'shlosh esrei midos haTorah nidreshet bahen. Rabbi
Yeah.
Yishmael said that there are 13 ways in which the Torah is elucidated. What's the first one? Have a guess. Go on, have a guess. Kal v'chomer, correct. Kal v'chomer. Second one is Gezeira Shava. Okay, so kal v'chomer. What's a kal v'chomer? Kal means light. Well done, Avril. I read your lips. Kal means light, and chomer, same word as chumra.
Strict.
Strict. So kal is the same word as kula, leniency. Chomer, same word as chumra, strictness. So we learn it. It's called I was going to say in English, it's called an a fiatori argument. In Latin, it's called an a fiatori argument. What it means is like this. You'll see here. Uma nachash shememit umarbe tum'ah tahor. A snake which kills other animals. It kills, a snake can kill a man, a snake can kill these 8 animals, can kill large animals. A snake which can kill animals which then increased tuma. So this snake comes along and it kills a man. What does that dead body of the man do? It disseminates impurity. Nevertheless, that serpent is tahor. That serpent is pure. It's not one of the 8 animals, which is why I said to Jeffrey, you're wrong about it being one of the 8 animals, but you're right about it being involved here. So the snake, or the serpent, which is not one of our 8 shrutzim, that can kill a person or an animal, which itself can then give out tuma, and yet the snake is not tahor. Sheretz she'eino meimit. Sheretz, one of these 8 animals which can't kill human beings. None of these 8 animals can kill human beings. You don't find a lizard killing a human being. You don't find a mole or a mouse killing a human being. Surely, says Rav, eino din sheyehei tahor. Surely that should also be that should also be tahor. So the nachash, the snake, which is a much more dangerous animal, and it ends up disseminating lots and lots of impurity by killing people and things, and yet it's pure. These nebuch little animals, which don't do anybody any harm, they don't kill anybody. Why should they be considered impure? They should be considered tahor. It's an a fiatori argument. So the snake, which is much more severe than these 8 animals, and that's pure. So these lovely little lizard and chameleon, beautiful little things, why should they be impure? Says Rav. Doesn't make any sense. And so therefore, I can show you that by logic, there should be these animals should not be passing on tuma. They should not be. We know that's not the halacha, and Rav is not saying that that's the halacha, because the halacha is very clear. It's in the Torah, finished. But what Rav is demonstrating is a type of thinking out of the box, not just accepting a situation, but actually looking into a situation, applying your mind, applying the intelligence that you've been given, applying the knowledge that you've gained over all these years, and applying it to the case in point. So that by so doing, Rav has demonstrated that here was a person who would be fitting to sit on a Sanhedrin, because he wouldn't just accept what he hears, he would look into it. He'd think, is there any other way I can look at it? Can we turn it round? Can we have a look at it from another angle? And I can tell you, as some of you will know, I spend a lot of my working life dealing with people in the legal field, judges and advocates. And some of these people, not all of them, some of them are incredibly clever and incredibly adept at doing exactly what Rav has just shown us, at looking at things from a different angle. I attend conferences 2-3 times a week where we have a whole group of medical experts, myself included, and experts from other fields, and the lawyers, and we're discussing the case that's in front of us before it gets to the judge. And of course, the barristers who are chairing the conferences are being devil's advocate and are looking at their case not only from their own angle, they have to look at it from what their opposite number's going to look at it at and have their arguments ready to counter. And very often they come up with arguments that I, for one, and some of the others had not thought of, because they are either trained to do so or are naturally able to do so, to look at things from different angles. And I've always said, and you've heard me say this many times before, that one of the most important features of higher education is not the knowledge that you gain, because certainly today you can gain knowledge without going to higher education. We've just gained a whole bunch of knowledge about a load of skinks and lizards just by clicking on Wikipedia between us, okay? But what higher education teaches you, and studying together with people teaches you, is how to look at things from another angle. It's the difference between those people that read the Daily Mirror and those people that read the Times. Okay, I'm sorry if that sounds very politically incorrect, but people who read the Daily Mirror can see only one argument and are only interested in seeing one argument. People who read the Times will have their own opinions, but will be interested at least to hear another side of the argument. And, you know, that is politically incorrect. And so what? It's true. Okay. One of the major features of learning and studying for us together here in this forum, and that's why those of you who are taking part here in person are gaining, in my opinion, more than the 20 or 30 people who will listen to it on the recording. Sometimes you listen to it on the recording and you want to say something, but you can't. Am I right, John? Johnny's smiling and nodding there. You want to say something. You want to put a point forward, but you can't because you're not live, right? Had you been there, you could have put that point forward, and we could all have learned from that point. So the idea of learning together, b'chavruta, that's how the Talmud has always been learned, not on your own, but together with somebody else. I have a friend in England. Well, actually, he lives in Ramat Bet Shemesh today, but he's a really good guy, and we used to learn together at times. But it was very frustrating for me because he just used to agree with whatever I said. Right? Whatever, you know, he's such a nice bloke, right? He didn't want to disagree with me, and sometimes I would say things that were just ridiculous, just to see if he would agree. And that was no fun for me. I wasn't learning anything. What you need when you have a chavrusa is somebody that says, hey, wait a minute, that's not right, and challenges you. That's how you learn. You learn by hearing somebody else's point of view, by seeing another side of an argument. And that is what Rav is telling us here, that the top people, the people who are going to be in the Sanhedrin, need to be the kind of people who will look at things from every angle that there is to make sure that we haven't missed something. Because chas v'chalila, we've missed something. An innocent man could be punished incorrectly, which is worse than a guilty man walking free. That's an important concept. So this idea of Rav proving something which can't be proved is not just to show how clever he is. It's to show how important the Talmud believes that the concept of a person's innocence until proven guilty is correct, because we have to be absolutely sure of somebody's guilt before we punish him. And we can only be sure of that if we look at things from every angle. So that was the point of this whole argument. However, Rav has not won this argument, because you will have noticed that I haven't finished this. Paragraph yet. Let me just get rid of this phone call. Sorry. Turn the phone off. There we go.
Interesting, Johnny, that Reb Steinsaltz also says it's a fortiori, how do you say it? Fortiori inference.
Where did he say that?
In the paragraph above that, you were looking at the creepy animals, the paragraph above it, to render a creeping animal pure, about 4 lines down from it.
Oh, there we go. Yes, as an a fortiori inference. Yes, yeah. Okay. That's a kal v'chomer. Kal v'chomer. So tomorrow morning, when you say Rabbi Yishmael Omer, and you say kal v'chomer, you can think of the creepy crawlies and the snakes, and you'll know exactly what a kal v'chomer is. So, right. So what is the end of this little argument, or this little exercise in Rav showing us how clever he is? Not for showing how clever he is his sake, but to show us how a judge on the Sanhedrin needs to think. Along comes somebody else who's equally clever and destroys his argument. And this is what we see, what I see all the time in my work. It's absolutely fascinating. One of the most interesting things for me in my work is for me to be in these conferences and to hear the various different experts in their fields argue things out with one another, each one putting forward an argument, the next one bringing a different argument to destroy the other argument, or to attack the other argument. It's absolutely fascinating. And when you have top-class people with top-class minds and brains and knowledge doing that, it's a really pleasurable experience. And for me, I feel extremely privileged. I'm also paid for doing it, which is wonderful. But you know, it's a really enjoyable intellectual exercise, and that is what you get from learning Gemarah as well. You get this, and I never really understood this when I first started learning Gemarah. I've told you this many times. I did not like it at all. I was too young. I was too immature. I didn't understand the concepts of arguing. It was, and it's one of my hobby horses. We teach Gemarah too young to kids. It puts them off, and then they hate it afterwards. My kids don't learn Gemarah today. Only one of them does. The others don't learn Gemarah today. Why? Because they were taught badly in school when they were too young, and now they've binned it. They've just dismissed it as not interesting. I was lucky. I came back at a later, older age and found that it, with a bit more maturity and a bit more looking at it in a different way, and not because I had to do it, I found that it was interesting again. But this is the beauty of the sea of the Talmud that we immerse ourselves in. So what's the argument back now against Rav? The argument against Rav now is Velohi, says the Gemara. No, Rav, you are not correct. You are not correct that this a fortiori argument, this kal v'chomer, doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because I'll prove you it doesn't work from something else. Midei dahava akutz ba'alma. I can prove that this is not logical from a kutz. What's a kutz?
Thorn. It says
a thorn. A thorn. That's right. A thorn. So if you have a thorn, which is from, I'm not a botanical expert, but I understand, I believe that there are certain bushes that if you get a prick from a thorn on this bushes, it's got certain poisons in it, and it can do you in. And you can die from such a thing, or you can certainly get septicemia. Even if it's not a poisonous thorn, you could get an infection and you could get septicemia, God forbid. So says the Gemara, you can't say that just because something doesn't, just because something kills you, that it's more tumadic, if you like, more impure, imparts more impurity than these animals. Because what about a thorn? A thorn can kill you. You could get septicemia from a thorn. You could get poisoned from a thorn. And so you're going to say what, a thorn should make you impure as well, because it's worse than a creepy crawly animal, not a creepy crawly animal, a sheretz, a Torah sheretz. No, you can't. It's obvious, therefore, that the kotz, the thorn, comes along and destroys the argument of Rav that the concept of whether you can kill somebody or not is relevant to Tumah. The thorn comes along and proves that clearly that argument is not a solid argument that Rav has put forward. And so Rav does not come back on this. Why? Because he's made his point. Rav has made the point. Rav was never trying to prove that the sheretz was tahor, because the sheretz cannot be tahor, because we've just read a pasuk in Parashat Shmini that tells us that the sheretz is impure. So how can it be pure? That was never the intention of Rav. The intention of Rav was to show that somebody who sits on a Sanhedrin has to have the ability to look at things from every angle. He's shown that. Doesn't matter whether he was right or he was wrong. In some ways, it's good that the Gemara has shot that down, because now we're not told who this was in the Gemara, by the way, who shot him down. But whoever it was, we can say, right, well, you're also good for the Sanhedrin then, aren't you? Because you've also looked at it in a different way. You've not just accepted what Rav has said, like my old Chavrusa in Manchester would say, yes, you know, today is Friday. You know, it's not Friday, it's Wednesday, right? No, I'm not going to accept what you say, Rav. I'm going to look at it from a different angle, and I'm going to bring you a proof that shows that you're not right. And so Rav would now turn around and say, you know what? Well done. Welcome to the Sanhedrin. You are fit to sit on the Sanhedrin. So this was not Rav trying to prove something. Often in the Gemara, you have the rabbis trying to prove their point, trying to prove what they believe is the halakha. This is an unusual Gemara, because Rav is trying to prove something which he doesn't believe. That's the whole point. He's trying to prove something that he doesn't believe. He knows full well that these shrotzim are tameh, but he's trying to show you that we need to look at things from a different angle. And he's successfully done that. The Gemara shoots him down, and that's the end of that. We've proved what we needed to prove, which is that there are people out there that can bring forth a credible argument in the face of an obvious counter-argument. Johnny, you wanted to say something?
How many judges you need to be able to put a case like that to be in the Sanhedrin?
Oh, good question. Well, let's go and have a look at the Gemara. Let's go back.
I keep bringing cases like I shouldn't.
Let's go back. Have a look what Rabbi Yehuda said right at the beginning, just at the bottom of the page there. Previous paragraph that we started with this morning. That's a good question, Johnny. Ein moshivin b'Sanhedrin ella. That's our famous Ein ella sentence. Remember, we started right at the beginning 4 years ago when we started this Gemara. We started with an Ein ella. It was one of the very, very first things we learned in this forum, in this shiur, which the late lamented Leon started off. And that was when it says Ein ella, it means that is the only way you can do it. Ein ella, there is nothing, Ein ella, except. So according to Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Johnny, Ein moshivim b'Sanhedrin ella mi sheyodeh lataheret hasheretz min haTorah. You've got to be able to think like this to be in the Sanhedrin. So the answer to your question seems to be, which is not the case with the language, by the way, we're going to come to that in a minute. It seems to be that this opinion of Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav is that all 71 judges on the Sanhedrin had to have this ability to think in this way.
Okay.
Good question. And the answer is there for us clearly in that section there. Okay, now back over the page.
Johnny,
Yes, David.
can I ask you, is this halacha about the 8 different types of shratzim? Does this apply halacha l'maaseh today for anything? Because originally, when you're talking about human contact with these shratzim, it would only apply to someone that's eating teruma or kodshim. And if he wanted to eat teruma or kodshim, then he'd have to, if he'd come into contact with one of these shrotzim, he'd go to the mikveh and be allowed to eat the food at nightfall. Does it apply to anything today? So, for example, if you find a dead lizard in one of your pots and pans, does it require tevilah?
Well, that's a very good question. Halacha l'maaseh. If you find a dead mouse, let's assume that a mouse is one of the shrotzim. Okay?
Yeah.
That's a very good question. My gut feeling is to say no, that it would not need tevilah. My gut tells me that if you were to ask a shaila on this to a person who knows, I'm going to guess what the answer would be, and then please God, over the next week I'll look it up. My answer would be...
What's the question? What's the question?
The question is, the original halacha of these 8 things, these 8 shrotzim, they made you tamei.
Yes.
What can't you do when you're tamei? You can't eat truma and maaseh, or you can't eat kodshim if you are eating a korban in the Beit HaMikdash.
Yeah.
If you are tamei from one of these things, you can't eat it. Well, today we don't have any of those korbanot. We don't have trumot and maasrot. So David asks if there is...
all tamei.
Sorry, Art?
We're all tamei, but you don't have the
We're all
right...
tamei anyway. So David was asking a question about halacha l'maaseh, whether the next pasuk which we read was if one of these dead things falls into your wooden vessel, you have to toivel it. Now the question is, do you have to toivel it only to put kodshim in it? And I think the answer is probably you only would have to toivel it to put kodshim in it. And since we don't have any kodshim anymore, the answer is no. But if I was asked the shaila, you know what I would say? My answer would be a typical rabbinic answer sitting on the fence. Who can guess what my answer will be?
I'll look into it.
No, I've looked into it now. What's my answer? Go on, David. What's my answer?
Toivel it without a bracha.
Yes, toivel it without a bracha. Toivel it without a bracha. You can't go wrong. Can't go wrong. You've toiveled it without a bracha.
It could still be a kashrut problem if the mouse is, if there's a part of the mouse is in the material.
You'd have to have probably, for it to be a problem, you probably have to have it a hot mouse, which was a cooked mouse. Probably not a kashrut problem, probably not. You would probably want to give it a good wash out, mind you. And I think that the answer would be, toivel it without a bracha. You can't go wrong by doing that. But a fascinating topic. Who would have thought that this little bit of Gemarah where Rav is trying to teach us about cleverness of the judges, we would find out all about skinks and lizards and wooden bowls and all sorts of things. That's the beauty of Gemarah. So we're almost up in time. So we will just look at what we're going to look at next week. Before I go on to what we're going to look at next week, are there any other questions or observations about our shrotzim? Okay, let's have a quick look in the last couple of minutes at what we're going to do next week, please God. Since we are talking about, if you have a look at the end of the last page, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, since we have quoted Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav, we are going to take something else of Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, which is also to do with Sanhedrin. And it is a little bit of a problem for us, because earlier on in this subject, we said over here, just before what we did today, what we did last week, if you remember, one of the things that Rabbi Yochanan wanted in order to be in the Sanhedrin, and again, this is an Ein Elah situation, so you've got to have this this ability, was Yodim Shivim Lashon. You've got to know 70 languages. So if you apply my logic to what Rav Yehuda Amar Rav said, that would imply that Rabbi Yochanan holds that all 71 members of the Sanhedrin needed to know all 70 languages. We are going to see next week that Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav does not agree with Rabbi Yochanan. He has a different opinion. And he's going to say to us how many of those, I'm going to take it off the screen so we don't get spoilers. He's going to talk to us about how many judges need to know those 70 languages. Rabbi Yochanan appears to tell us that all 71 need to know those 70 languages. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav is going to disagree, and we will look at that next week. If you don't want a spoiler, don't read on. Okay, any questions on today's shiur? Any observations, questions? Anybody want to be on the Sanhedrin?
When you said without a bracha just before, I thought you were going to say it depends.
Oh, well, that's another good rabbinic answer. It depends, yeah. Can't go wrong with that either. But then the problem with it depends is then you have to give what it depends on.
You're right, and you're right.
So let's just recap. The idea of without a bracha, since you mentioned toveling without a bracha, that is a concept which we should be familiar with, because when we have new kalim which are not been made by Jewish people, we have to take them to the mikveh or the sea. We have to tovel them, and there are certain things we have to tovel. For example, what do we have to tovel? Metal,
glass, metal.
Leave glass aside for a moment. Metal, wood, definitely needs to be toveled with a bracha. Okay. What definitely does not need to be toveled?
Clay stuff.
Right.
No, that's in the middle category. Plastic.
Plastic.
Plastic does not need tevilah. There is a machloket, as always, between the poskim as to whether glass or glazed pottery, so china, glazed pottery, needs to be toveled. Many people say it needs to be toveled. Others say it doesn't. Others say you tovel it without a bracha because we're not sure. So what's the best thing to do in that situation? Let's say you've got some glass that needs to be, you buy a new set of glasses and you want to go and tovel. What are you going to do? Some say with a bracha, some say without a bracha, some say you don't need it at all. What are you going to do? Now let's see how clever you are and whether you will match up to the needs of being a member of the Sanhedrin. Who wants to be on the Sanhedrin? You have to come and tell me now, what is the solution to what you do with these glasses when you have all these different opinions? What are you going to do with your glasses?
Tovel once with a bracha and once without a bracha.
Oh, no, you can't do that. Because what if you then said a bracha levatala? You can't do that. No, Michael can't be on the Sanhedrin yet. You need to, okay.
Wait till you have something that does need toiling with the bracha. Do that and then do the one without.
Avril can be on the Sanhedrin. Only she's a woman. Oh, sorry, Avril. You can't be on the Sanhedrin. You're a woman. But you're clever enough to be on the Sanhedrin. That's exactly the answer. What you do with your glasses is you try and find something that definitely needs tevilah. So if you've got a ladle, a metal, something or other, a bowl that you bought, and you're going to toivel that, that definitely needs a bracha. You make your bracha on the metal thing, and you have in mind that if these glasses need a bracha, this bracha which I'm making on the metal should also cover the glasses. If the glasses don't need a bracha, well, this bracha was made for the metal anyway, so that's okay. And if they don't need tefillah at all, so what? I've dipped them in a mikveh, big deal, no problem. So the solution is exactly as Avril has said. Avril is now the Rosh Sanhedrin of Netanya. Only we don't have a Sanhedrin, and if we did, she couldn't be the head of it because she's a woman. Anyway, we will leave it there. Very good answer that, Avril. Well done. I'm glad you managed to join from the car because we got the right answer to the question. Very good. Michael, you need to go and do a bit more Sanhedrin, a bit more logical thinking before you can be on the Sanhedrin. Okay, lovely, wonderful. Have a good rest of the week, everybody. See you soon.
Thank
What
you.
translation?
You
Hello?
are saying,
Yeah, what translation are you using of the Gemarah?
We have on the screen the Steinsaltz.
Okay.
Steinsaltz translation and notes, but we only really use that for to have, because it looks like nice on the screen. We like to have our own take on things. If you have a look at Michael Krause's screen there, you can see he's holding it up there, the Koren Talmud Bavli, which is the Steinsaltz. This is the online version I've got on screen, which I share with you.
Do you use, wait a second, you use the Art Scroll one?
I use the Art Scroll for preparation. If I'm that's how what I have a lot of, I get a lot of info from the Art Scroll, which I then use as the basis for a lot of my preparation. I use the Art Scroll Hebrew rather than the Art Scroll English because it's got more sources which I can then refer to. But the Art Scroll English is also a very, very good production of Sanhedrin.
Okay. Michael, can you just show me what you held up because I didn't see it? Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, what I will do, Hannah, we have a little WhatsApp group for the Sanhedrin Shiur. I will add you to the group, and then I will send you, because I've got a Steinsaltz as well. I'll send you a picture of it so that you can see it. All I need for that is to have your phone number. Do you want to give me your phone number? I'll just jot it down. Let me just stop the recording in the meantime. Hang on. How am I going to do that? Here we go. Stop recording. There we go.